This is Hot Mic.
Hot Mic.
On the networks of WDAY.
WDAY.
Here's Dom Izzo.
Welcome back, everybody. Hour 2 on this Wednesday morning, ready to rock and roll. Our thanks to Tyler Coastal for giving us a few minutes there from Fargo South to get ready for their game. We chatted about it, I know Monday, Sam did, and I hadn't had a whole chance to do it yet to reflect on the football opener for UND, other than UND fans giving me a hard time about my prediction the other day. Fighting Hawks look great in their opener. Lost to Kansas State. I know they want the win. There's no moral victories that Eric Schmidt would talk about on Monday's press conference, but wanted to get some full reflection on that and then look ahead to a game. May not be a great judge either this coming Saturday with Portland State, who hasn't scored a point yet in 2 football games. Tom Miller joins us for the Grand Forks Herald. Appropriate enough, Tom's on the show. We're honoring our 6-year anniversary of doing this. Tom's been a staple since we started doing it 6 years ago. He's always been affable to do the show, and we appreciate that. So I appreciate you doing this, bud, each and every time that I ask. So let's first start with, now we've had a few days, not from the initial reaction of what happened in Manhattan. You've had 4 or 5. Take us out of maybe the main takeaways you had out of the game Saturday in Manhattan.
I think my biggest takeaway is that, Jerry Kaminsky looked comfortable. The quarterback position was such a mystery. I feel like you couldn't learn any more out of practice. It was time to see what somebody could do in a game. And I thought Jerry Kaminsky being able to put together 5 drives of more than 70 yards, did really admirably and maybe settled that position for, and you never know in this era, but you could potentially say years, when you have a sophomore quarterback who showed that he could get it done in a lot of different ways. I thought he ran well. He made difficult throws. He made his easy throws. I know Eric Schmidt after the game talked about, maybe some ball placement could have been better to allow his wide receivers to make some moves upfield. But at that point, I think you're nitpicking a little bit when you're talking about where the quarterback position could have been. Because if he comes out and he struggles and he looks overwhelmed, boy, you're back to saying, what the heck are you doing at quarterback? So I thought my biggest takeaway was Jerry Kaminsky looked like he could grab that thing and run with it a little bit.
So this is total 2020 hindsight here, Tom, but last year, obviously, Simon Rumfo won the job over Kaminsky and Trey Feeney. What was the progression in your mind from this time last year to now that they didn't see, the previous staff didn't see out of Kaminsky now that he's done it to win the job?
Yeah, I think, one of my biggest knocks on Jerry Kaminsky's fall camp a year ago was just there was a lot of dropping back and just eating the ball as the play played out in front of him. I think it was maybe just moving too fast. The picture wasn't clear to him. I just didn't think that he looked comfortable or confident. And I think I would even say at this fall camp, I saw a lot of moments of just up and down play. And I would say ever since he's been labeled QB1, I think that maybe there's been a weight lifted off his shoulders. I feel like he's bouncing around practice a little bit more with a different level of confidence. This game should give him some comfortability. I just think maybe he's turned a little bit of a corner because that athleticism was always there. So, the arm strength, accuracy had just kind of been up and down. And I just thought in year one, everything was maybe just a little bit overwhelming in terms of the playbook and all that.
When you look at how this game played out, and again, I know there are no moral wins, just did the mood around the team be completely different leaving Manhattan? Did you get that sense Saturday night?
Yeah, I think there was a lot of confirmation. And for me, and maybe, you get a little pessimistic in the media a little bit, but I always just thought it was, easy to drink the Kool-Aid of a new coaching staff when you haven't lost any football games yet. And so that's another big takeaway is that you buy some more time with the buy-in here. You lose that game 59 donut, and all of a sudden all the messages you're hearing in practice hit a little different when maybe you had a huge setback like that. So I just think that for me, I was curious how this all would land, because like I say, the messages that Eric Schmidt was saying, I think he's saying a lot of the right things, but if you don't have a positive result, all of a sudden those messages have a harder time getting home, I imagine. So, Yeah, I don't know. Interesting now to see if they can maintain momentum because obviously that was an issue in the previous regime.
I thought seeing right, and I want to get to that in a second. Seeing Sawyer Seidel, what he did, and again last year was in flashes where he would just splash. He would do something like, whoa, that was, and he did it there, and he was doing it against Kansas State. It's not like against Murray State. This is against Kansas State. That you got to find a way to get this guy the ball more, at least in my mind.
Yeah, I think a year ago you saw him used a little bit more. I mean, there wasn't gadget plays, but it was certainly going to get him to the outside. I think that was my one of my takeaways from the Kansas State game is how many of his yards, his touchdowns in particular, that came between the tackles. Because I thought that's why maybe we would see more Xavier Lay is that you had Gavin Zebarth as a hammer, and
Yep.
you had Sawyer that you wanted to avoid between the tackles, and then I think maybe I leave this game saying maybe Sawyer Seidel can have a little bit more of a complete package allowed to him. If he can have that kind of production between the tackles and you don't just have to use him in the screen game or the jet sweep game, you can use him like a traditional running back.
Got to give a shout out to our guy, Seth Anderson from Moorhead, Minnesota. He was the Missouri Valley Football Conference Offensive Lineman of the Week. Just on you take a full view of it, Tom. How did the offensive line look to you in game one?
Yeah, and I think UND's offensive line flew under the radar in a good way coming off of last year. They got a lot of great experience playing a year ahead of schedule because of those guys that transferred, like Hagan and Borut and
Yep.
Kilty. They got their opportunity, but UND didn't win enough games for those guys to collect their all conference honors. And so I think when FBS vultures come calling, they didn't have any labels to their name. And so UND got to sneak by a little bit and maintain that roster. And I think it's a really talented offensive line, and they just didn't have the accolades. And if UND wins enough games this year, they could garner those accolades. But it was a solid group, and they all returned. And I think they go 7 deep. When
Mm,
Caleb Olson went out, when he got
yeah.
rolled up into, they bring in Aiden Teeter, who played a bunch last year. And if UND doesn't have him this week, Teeter's an experienced kid, and they've got a couple of those guys.
How do we look on the flip side? I guess stuff that you would say, all right, that needs to be addressed going forward. What stands out to you on that other side?
On the defensive side of
Well,
the
just
ball,
overall, just your other takeaways. Okay, that was a positive. What was like, all right, these are things they have to address going forward.
I think it's the amount of snaps their top defenders got. Like, I just think it was kind of clear that you couldn't take Malachi McNeil off the field. You
Yeah.
couldn't take Bennett Walker at corner off the field. Um, I thought the defensive line looked good when they maybe weren't tired. I think maybe in the second half, in the third quarter, you start to see those Kansas State really started to run the football effectively, and I think some of that showcases um, the lack of depth at a few of those spots. I think that's what's going to be important this week is, if they're a 25-point favorite, now they were a 25-point underdog at Kansas State. So, maybe don't sit too comfortably, but if this game plays out the way that, it could, um, maybe this would be a great opportunity to start developing your twos and your threes, because I don't know if that's sustainable for X number of games to play those kind of snaps to your top guys.
And it's just this is like from A to Z for their schedule. They played a Power Four team. Now they may play the worst team in FCS football this week in Portland State, who has not scored a point in 2 games. I don't know if we're going to get a judge till maybe next week when they go to Missoula on how good this football team is.
Yeah, 100%. But that Missoula game to me has
Yeah.
always been the circled one in terms of like, what's the path of this season? Does it really feel like kind of a rebuild situation here under Coach Schmidt, or can this be a team that all of a sudden the expectations change a little bit? And we talked about that last year a little bit coming off the Iowa State game.
Yep.
I think there was a different feel about the defense. So I'm a little cautious to put too much stock into one game, of course. But I think that Montana game will tell us a lot more about, okay, does this team have more fight on the road than it did a year ago? That certainly looked to be the case. There was a different vibe. I've seen this story play out where UND's been tight at halftime. Nebraska was that way. Utah State was that way.
Yeah.
And that third quarter played out, and I thought, okay, I've seen this story. But for UND to fight back and take the lead late in the fourth quarter, I hadn't seen that. So is that an indication that this is a different era? I think that's what's to be learned in Missoula.
I'm interested as well. We talked about it when we had you on to preview the season. Wide receiver was another spot. Like, who's going to catch the ball? Did we get an answer on that Saturday night?
Yeah, I think there were some really great indications, because I had those same questions. It felt like guys that I thought were ready to emerge, perhaps that are still young, but like a Corey Ty and a Dang Dang. I felt like maybe I didn't see enough production at fall camp. And then the lights come on, and all of a sudden, Corey Ty has a little bit of a breakout, both between what he caught in the receiving game and what he provided in the jet sweep game.
Mm,
I thought you saw a flash from Christian Hoskins that he can be really dangerous. I'm especially curious, like a Portland State should be a great opportunity for a Christian Hoskins to
I
have a
agree.
breakout game.
Yep. Yep.
So between Corey Ty, Christian Hoskins, and then Dang Dang, who has that 20-yard catch on the slant from Javance, which I thought was really interesting because Jerry Kaminsky's helmet comes off. Javance comes in the
Yeah.
game. It's 2nd and 5. Very easy opportunity to just run the football with your backup quarterback. And they did exactly what Javance's strength is, and that's throwing the fastball slant to Dang Dang, who had to make a nice catch on that play. So, uh, you know, throughout fall camp, I thought BJ Fleming was the one guy who gave them some production. And then for this game to play out the way it did, where Jerry really spread the ball out to like 12 guys, including their tight ends, who didn't even have their top starting tight end. I thought that maybe showed what we'll see a little bit more of under Jerry Kaminsky. Maybe is that he's going to spread it out.
Mm. UND with Christian Hoskins, a kid from Alexandria, came transfer from Minnesota. We saw him play here against the Spuds a couple times. Electric speed that he just never was able to get on the field at the University of Minnesota. That I was a guy I saw when UND got him. Like, okay, if they can use him right, that could be a burner in the offensive game plan. I know you wrote about this. Give us an update injury wise heading into Portland State. Who is going to be in or out for the game with the Vikings?
Yeah, the tight end situation is probably the more dangerous one. Is Aiden Beheimer, the 2nd-year transfer from Air Force, is probably their top pass catching tight end. They'll play some of the tight ends that are a little bit more in the fullback role, like a Mason South. But in terms of the pass catcher, that's usually going to be Aiden Beheimer, and he was out on crutches in Manhattan. And Eric Schmidt said he's likely out this week, but that it seems that they're hopeful that these are short-term injuries. Sam Strandell has been out for a few weeks now with a leg injury, and he's kind of slowly working himself back in, but I don't think he's likely probably not relevant for a few weeks at least here. But all things considered, oh, and Caleb Olson, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
starting offensive lineman and captain, could be out again this week, but that is likely short term as well. So all things considered, they're in a pretty good place health wise. Coming off an FBS game, you never know.
Last thing before I let you go, and I appreciate the time as always. Does this change, I guess, attitude this week around the football team? I mean, Potato Bowl is always going to be a big crowd. It's a night game. The Alaris is going to be packed. But has this changed to say, hey, maybe to pay attention to this team, maybe that we weren't going to, knowing the amount of changeover they had?
Yeah, I think for people who are maybe a little pessimistic about drinking the Kool-Aid, like I mentioned earlier, I feel like there's half the fan base that is just ready to dive in head first. And I feel like I was the one cautioning people like, hey, the gains being made in recruiting, we'll see those in 2028, guys. Pump the brakes a little bit. Um, but so I think there's a little, that's obviously a juice of excitement. Like, okay,
Yep.
maybe this is a different era and a different vibe, and a new coach is brought in, um, a new set of expectations, and so we'll see if UND can maintain those. Program momentum has been hard in Grand Forks, and that's the challenge here. And maybe, like you said, I don't know if we learned that this week. But we'll learn it soon.
No, Portland State. At least their coach, Bruce Barnum, is an all-timer. You been out there, right? You made all the Big Sky trips. Can you give us?
Yeah, and you gotta, if you're gonna do the real Big Sky checklist, you gotta count both Portland State stadiums. So yeah, I've been to Providence Park in downtown Portland,
Yeah.
where people come off the train there, and you see them come off the train, and they just kind of like, oh, there's a football game going on here, because nobody cares in downtown
No.
Portland. The 7 people are there, and then it's the other way is out of sight, out of mind
Yep.
too. Is playing in Hillsboro there, next to the Hillsboro Hops baseball park. Just a strange football setup in Portland. That's a tough place to win. Bruce Barnum's been great, great quote. But they're looks like they're in a tough place.
Oh, it's not good. It is. It's been bad for a while. I know you were out there just to give people an example of, I don't know how they can win with just how they try to finance football, which they don't there. Great to see you, bud. Thanks so much as always for the time. Have a great week and enjoy the game on Saturday. All right.
Absolutely. Congrats on the run on the Izzo show here.
Appreciate it, bud. Thanks so much for doing it. Tom Miller joins us from the Grand Forks Herald. Give us the lowdown on UND's game with Portland State coming up on Saturday night. Potato Bowl, 6 o'clock from the Alaris Center. We'll be back. The game will probably be done by the time we get back, but it ain't going to be. If it's a game, then we got more issues to talk about because Portland State is bad. It's a game next week when they go to Missoula. That's the intriguing one for UND football. All right, we'll break. We come back. We're going to wrap things up. We got Bison Media Zone coming up here in about 15 minutes. A salute to us. We're going to do it one time because it's our birthday. We'll do that when we wrap up the show right after this.